Everybody, this is Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Ken Dow, and this is a place where I bring art, culture, and politics all together. And I try to do it every Sunday at 3 o'clock, so tune in and watch. But today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a conversation I had with Council President Blaine Griffin. We talked about his relationship and how he became the council president and his relationship with the other council members as well as with the mayor. He referred to them as the team of rivals. Very good conversation. He really sets out his vision of what he'd like to see the city become and how he's willing to work with everyone to get there. Tune in this Sunday, Tim Tramble. It's going to be on 3 o'clock. Strategic Moves with Ken Dow. Please hit the like button, subscribe, as well as share this with some of your friends. See you then.
This is Strategic Moves with Ken Dow.
It gets fun. Oh, you did all that fluff. Let's get down to it.
All right, here we go.
So here we go. Now, you decide you want to be council president. You didn't support the mayor that was coming in. You were part of Mayor Jackson's administration, Kevin Kelly, and all of that we talked about. How the hell you become council president?
You know, man, it's interesting, Ken, and I'm not saying it just because I'm on your show, but you helped me make that decision. And your audience needs to know that. I was really struggling on whether I was going to run for Congress, whether I was going to run for mayor, or whether I was just going to continue to be the councilman for Ward 6. And if Kelly left, then maybe I would take a shot at council president. But it wasn't like that was where I was trying to aim. I really wanted to continue to work with Frank Jackson, or I wanted to have an opportunity to serve the broader district, because as a former vice chair of the Democratic Party and being involved with the party and so many people for so long, I thought I had a path for Congress. And I talked to my big brother, Kenny. And Kenny said, well, I'm with Chantel. And I said, man, I respect that. And, you know, me and, I'm going to tell you, listening audience, we don't always have the most pleasant conversations, but that's my brother, And then I thought about the mayor's race, and I started looking at the math at the mayor's race, and I started seeing the tea leaves that whoever followed Frank Jackson and that was too closely tied to Frank Jackson. And because so much of the money people that I had worked with over the years had already placed their bet with Kelly, because the mayor had not made a decision on whether he was going to run. It looked like I was going to have to run in the path of council and be a councilman again. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Had a little attitude with a few people, but I got over it eventually. And I said, you know what, man, you were talking one day and you said, you know what, that council presidency may not be bad. I was like, I don't want to be council president with all these. But then I started thinking about it. And I started thinking about George Forbes, and I started thinking about Frank Jackson, and I started thinking about, of all people, Jay Westbrook and other people. And I was like, man, that council presidency ain't bad if you're able to coordinate and build a coalition of council. It's an equal branch of government to the mayor, the judicial branch, and it rivals every other power in the city. Why not? Maybe God has put me in a position to be council president, because if I go in one of these other routes, I may not be successful. But if I stay in council president, I can maybe get some stuff done. So Ken, here it is, 1 month into my council presidency. We got a $50 million investment from the Cleveland Clinic for lead abatement. I've written the most successful piece of legislation to legislate properties around making homes lead safe. We got broadband doing well. We got a major investment in the southeast part of town that's going to help with entrepreneurs. So I might have actually done something right, brother. I think you may have gave me some good advice. Now,
Well, the advice was solid because we talked about it, and we talked about anybody who would have took the job, whether it was Kevin or Mayor Biv or Barshir, anybody, all of them were going to need a strong council president.
Right.
And just to go full disclosure with us, this wasn't the first time I told him he should be council president either.
He said it a few times.
I didn't say that we tried to make that happen, but we were loyalty, as the man said. He's a very loyal guy, and they put him in a position that he followed the path that he did, and I'm happy that it all worked out for you. So now as council president, who's your leadership team you got down there now?
So, it's interesting because a lot of people say, how did you end up with your leadership team? And it's no secret that it was a gentleman by the name of Kerry McCormick, who represents downtown in Ohio City, who was trying to put together his coalition to become council president. There was also another council person, Brian Casey, who was trying to figure out if he had a path. And at the end of the day, I had a very good, solid group of East and West coalitions. One thing that I would tell you is that this present mayor is not the only one that built a good, solid East-West coalition. I had an equal number of white counterparts on the west side that said old rule that if you have a black mayor, you got to have a white council president, or if you have a white mayor, you got to have a black council president, is outdated, and we don't hold to that. And ironically, two very strong, beautiful women, Jasmine Santana and Jenny Spencer, really held the line and really helped support me, as well as a guy named Brian Mooney and others.
That was
So-
a form of what, equity and inclusion back in those days,
It
right?
was, hey, but I would say this, it gets better. So when I'm cobbling together the team and I'm having meetings with everybody, the fortunate part is myself and Kerry McCormick, who's a younger gentleman, LGBTQ community downtown in Ohio City, we would always talk and meet, and our whole goal was don't let this become toxic. Because at the end of this, we're going to have to be unified as a council. So let's not go so far over the line that this council, whoever becomes council president, becomes fractured. So finally, I guess a few people said, you know what, Blaine has the votes. And they came and they sat down and said, look, here's what we'd like to do. And the proposal was, can we all work together to be part of one big leadership team? I said, sure. That's what we do. The elections are over. If you guys are coming back, as long as I know that loyalty, which is, you're going to hear me say that over and over again, which is so important to me. I don't have to wake up every day trying to pull knives out my back. I'll embrace you. I got it because I read this book once by Doris Goodwin Kearns called The Team of Rivals. And The Team of Rivals talked about Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. I've always been a fan of Lincoln. And in this book, he talks about how all of the people who he put in his cabinet were all his rivals who were trying to take him out as president. But he made them all part of his cabinet. And because he made them all part of his cabinet, he was able to have the best cabinet to save the Union eventually. These folks started out as rivals, but they ended up as allies and they ended up saving our country. And I always keep that book in the back of my mind because even though you compete, I'm an ex-athlete, I'm used to competing and trying to win. But at the end of the day, how do you build a coalition with people who don't think like you, with people who are different from you, and quite frankly, people who tried to take you out? I got to talk about this council because, like I said, I'm an ex-athlete, and I always said, if you could ball, then I can put a team on the field that can win. And I got a little bit of an extended team where I got some great leaders like Mike Polensik, who a lot of people are shocked at because I made him chair of safety. I still got my OG, Kevin Conwell. That's my guy.
He's co-chair.
He's chair of health.
Health.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I got Anthony Hairston, who is the chair of development planning and sustainability. Bright young fella, bright man who really gets it and understands stuff. And then I have Stephanie House, who's leading the freshman class, but she comes from the state legislature, so she knows politics and she knows how to
Been
get
down there
stuff
before
done.
too.
She's been in council before too. So we got a good team of people. Then we got newer people like Richard Starr, Rebecca Maurer. I mentioned Jenny Spencer earlier. We got
The new ones. Let's talk about the newbies you got.
Man, we got
a whole
some
bunch
great
of
newbies, man. And that's what I was. So I've only been on council since 2017, but I'm fifth in seniority already.
Wow.
You got Conwell, you got Casey, and you got McCormick. And then you have me. So everybody else after me or newbies. And man, let me tell you something. What I could tell you about these young folks, and I can call them that now, they're smart. And they're really intelligent. They're fast learners. I feel an enormous responsibility to help them be successful. And you got guys like Richard Starr in Ward 5, smart guy.
Yeah.
You got Rebecca Maurer in Ward 12, very smart young lady, very intelligent. You got Deborah Gray. Deborah Gray
Kenya's
is the
mama.
twin, Kenya's mama, who
Right.
used to be part of our group. So the mama now is the council person.
Right.
Then you have, I mentioned Stephanie House. And then you have a gentleman by the name of Chris Harsh. You're going to hear about this guy, Chris Harsh.
Where is it?
He's in Ward 13. He took over Old Brooklyn community where Kevin Kelly was at. And this guy is a realtor. He's a super bad organizer. I really want you to meet him because this guy has probably run one of the most revolutionary campaigns that I've seen somebody run recently. He is a highly trained organizer. He was involved with the Senate Bill 5, but he's a good guy. So we got just a lot of talented people. Then you got some vets like Joe Jones, who is the Lee Harvard council person. And say whatever you want about Joe Jones. He's one of the hardest working, one of the most engaging public officials in the city, and he's really engages with people. So we got a good mix of institutional knowledge, but a lot of great innovative new ideas. And in the center of that, I've been so fortunate that they allowed me to be their council president.
All right, so now let's get into some other stuff as council president.
The most impactful, beautiful project that we've done, and I got to thank our former Congresswoman, your friend, and the Secretary of HUD, Marsha Fudge, is a $35 million grant in order to redo public housing at Morris Black Woodhill Estates.
Oh, that
That is huge. It's going to leverage probably about a $175 million to $200 million investment. And it's not just for those estates, it's for that entire area. And we are now seeing investment in areas that have been left behind in the Buckeye-Shaker, Woodland Hills. And this area has the lowest life expectancy in the entire county.
Correct.
And now we're putting money where poor people are, where Black people are, and making sure that we change their trajectory of their life.
So I'm going to stay on this. I was watching City Council this week, and I saw that you had those attorneys on there from the housing and working on you guys with these evictions and things of that nature. You want to tell us a little bit about that? That was a good project. I listened to their proposal or their report that they gave you guys. It's some impressive numbers and things that they're doing there. So would you tell us a little
Very impressive. And I want to give former council president, my friend Kevin Kelly, credit, along with a guy named Tony Brancatelli, who's the former councilman in Ward 12. This was a council-led initiative, just like we led the Lead Safe ordinance and led the dollars, to raise the money, to build the coalition and raise the money to help the homeowners throughout the city. Council also led this beautiful initiative called Right to Council. The only places that I believe have Right to Council is New York, Newark, New Jersey, and I think Cleveland is one more city I'm missing, but Cleveland is the third or fourth city.
Right to Council.
Right to Council is anybody who has children in the home and have to go to housing court. Now the city has a partnership with the United Way and Legal Aid in order to provide representation for them when they go in front of courts. What would happen in the past is owners of properties of LLCs would have all of the money and have attorneys go represent them, and regular citizens had no chance of basically fighting against these attorneys. Well, now citizens that have children in their homes have a right to representation, which means that they will get an attorney assigned to them that the city has money in, the United Way and other philanthropic groups have put money into, that now they will deal with their eviction rate. They also deal with rental assistance payments to make sure landlords are made whole and other things like that. So before, you only had like a 1 to 2% success rate for people who were being evicted that went in front of housing court and turned and were able to keep their homes or stay in their rental property.
So
Now you have about 18 to 20% success rate. So you actually change these numbers dramatically to where now people are not getting evicted from their homes because you actually have an attorney that's representing you in housing court that is able to take up your cause, make sure that you are treated fair, and make sure that in most cases stabilize households, because now people aren't getting evicted and having to move from bad situation to bad situation.
So if you were someone who was having issues with your landlord and he wanted to evict you, then you're saying if you have kids in the household, you can call this agency, they will go to court with you or help you through that process. Now, we're not saying you ain't been paying your rent, you haven't been doing what you need to do, that they're going to stop an eviction for you. That's not what you're saying, right?
No, I'm not saying that. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Correct.
But what I will say is that in a lot of these cases, it's being found that these tenants are being abused by these landlords.
Okay.
We have to be very cautious, because one of the things that I'm also very cautious of now is landlord rights and property owners' rights.
Correct.
Because
It goes both ways.
It goes both ways.
Right.
But it was always tilted in the other direction. And now it's a little bit more fairness, because the council now evens the playing field for people to have this. In New York, they had astronomical numbers. Basically, what you're seeing as a return on our investment is so much of a different playing field that it's almost like nobody gets evicted anymore, because now they're able to tap into rental assistance. And a lot of people didn't know there's COVID money available in order for you to prove that can make your landlord whole. Now, we are also looking at accompanying pieces, which I'm very cautious, because I like to hear all sides around pay to stay and source of income, which kind of gets rid of some of the discriminatory practices for people trying to stop people with Section 8 and other type of things. But it's all about housing
Let's
security.
go back to that because I had Jeff Patterson on the show and we talked about that. He called it charm school.
Yeah.
When you go to Cleveland Heights, man, it's a true story, man.
Oh,
When
yeah,
I moved
I
up to
remember that.
Cleveland Heights, man, they put a letter out. It was all over the place that if you moved up here and you had Section 8, they wanted you to go to
Charm
some
school.
charm school.
I remember
To
that.
actually go through that. That's what you're referring to?
No.
Okay.
Source of income. So if you are a homeowner or you're a property owner and I have a Section 8 voucher, you have an opportunity and I go to you and say, I want to use this Section 8 voucher in order to rent your property. And you say, no. Or you start asking questions about how are you going to pay rent? And I disclose, well, I'm going to use Section 8. And then you say, oh, well, nah, we ain't doing that. Well, if you add a part to your fair housing law that actually will say, nah, you can't discriminate for somebody because their source of income to pay their rent is a Section 8. It takes that off the table. A lot of suburban communities have it, but we want to look at it in the city of Cleveland. Now, realtors, I also want to hear their point of view, so I'm not all the way there yet, but we want to do something where we don't punish people for having to use alternative methods to pay their rent.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you, man, we did it having tenants and folks in, and we had just as many good tenants as we had bad tenants.
Yeah.
We had, and Yvonne talked to a lady right now who been cool with us for years that was one of our tenants. So I understand that it does go both ways.
Now, pay to stay is a little bit different, and that's a little bit of a trickier one because pay to stay basically deals with if a tenant is behind in rent because there's a dispute or something like that, then if they find a way to pay the landlord, then within a reasonable amount with penalties or fees or whatever else like that, then they should be able to stay in their apartment without the landlord evicting them. But once again, we don't want to put landlords in a bad light in order to not give them the option of getting rid of a bad tenant.
So let me ask you a little bit about this no bail. Are you familiar with that?
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah, they're trying to pass some legislation that I guess we have some people that are being arrested with the city of Cleveland that are in there for crimes that the bail are like hundreds, $200 or so. You heard it? Are you guys?
Yeah.
on
I mean, Ken, let me just be honest with you. Think about most people. If you go to jail and you get a DUI or you get other problems, then you go to jail and, you have to pay $500, let's say. A lot of people don't have that $500. And the way our system is set up now, the courts are within their right to be able to hold you until you pay that money. So there's a lot of things that we've done around trying to do bail reform, which I think is a part of broader criminal justice reform. When people say criminal justice reform, they think it's just police, but no, this is part of it too. But we also have to better utilize the diversion center right over here on East 55th Street, where a lot of people just might need to go into drug treatment or rehab and not be locked up in jail. I also passed the no fines, no jail time, and basically decriminalized marijuana in the city of Cleveland because of the disparities. You had people in the city of Cleveland who were 8 times more likely than their white counterparts to be charged with a marijuana possession and marijuana cases. So we took that off the table, and now there's no fine, no jail time. So in essence, marijuana in the city of Cleveland is decriminalized. We talked about rites of passage earlier and why I would say, can I have the elders' permission to speak? That was a level of respect. That was a level of young people saying that like, oh, wow, it's order and decorum. There's not order, decorum, and that is intentional. The people that we talk about, this beast that the mayor used to talk about, Mayor Jackson used to talk about, that beast is transactional. All it's here to do is devour. It's not here to cultivate love. And I know that sounds simple, but that's what our community is dealing with. When you go and you just see young girls and boys, man, walking down the street just angry and mad and sad and depressed. And Cleveland has a depression problem. And this is a great city, man. And we got to make sure that some of us go out there, like you said, you pushing the agenda, you pushing people like me to live the agenda. Because at the end of the day, man, we got to show this community that somebody actually cares about them, gives a damn about them, and we'll do whatever we can. And sometimes that love don't always come back. I get more FUs than thank yous.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you really love this community, you do what we're doing.
So let me ask you on that note, with the new mayor coming in, Justin Bibb, what advice you would give the New mayor.
So if I was to give advice, not just to Mayor Bibb, who I happen to, work with and talk with, and I tell people there's going to be times when there's going to be healthy tension. I have to represent 17 members of the body. So even though we're both African Americans in historical moment, I recognize the gravity of this moment that two black men are running this city. But let me say this to you. But my job is not to be mayor. My job is also not to be a fan.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to run council.
So
And I'm going to do that.
Let me ask you then, what are you looking forward to?
I think the vision is very good. I always tell people when you have a vision, it's different than making it a reality. But I think that his goals and aspirations and dreams are right on point. All the things that he's talking about doing, I think sound good. But we could want to build a magnificent palace, but we actually have to have the tools, the labor, the quality materials. So I'm looking forward to the vision, but I also want to make sure that we also deal with some reality. People didn't understand what Frank Jackson was saying when he said it is what it is. He wasn't saying it is what it is, I can care less what happens, which is what people were trying to say, that he doesn't have a sense of urgency. What he was saying is that there's a sense of practicality.
Really?
That it's a sense of gravity at the end of the day that is practical.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about Frank Jackson.
Yeah.
He let that fester for like 12 years.
And then he finally got it out. And nobody knew what he was talking about for 12 years.
For 12 years.
And then he wrote a letter the last day of night, and everybody said, "Oh, Eureka. I knew what he was talking about."
For 12 years.
But my point is, for the first time, now this is where the verdict is out. And this is where I bear some responsibility in this. I won't put this just on our new mayor. For the first time, the city is looking at idealistic, is going to be run off of idealistic and idealism as opposed to practicality.
But I'm going to tell you why. It's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
But I just want to caution everybody. There's a reality in this. And we can talk vision. We could talk big plan. We could talk big agendas. But that little old lady and that little kid over in Glenville, that little old lady in Old Brooklyn, that Hispanic mother over there in Clark Fulton, they're dealing with reality. They're dealing with a practicality that we are charged with delivering. And they ain't thinking high-end vision and high-end. They thinking about survival. And that's where we got to balance. The landscape of this city is predominantly single black mamas trying to raise little boys. Like me and you talked about
$30,000 a year.
Yeah. So my point is, there's a level of realism and practicality in this that I think the vision is good. And I love the energy. I love the innovation. But this job has a way of humbling you. And I'm going to be here for these guys. I don't know how long I'm going to do it. I'm going to try like crazy not to be Mike Polensek and do 40 years in the job or quite frankly 20. Our generation is the generation that was sandwiched in between this ebb and flow that we're seeing, because you talked about Arnold, Lou, and George and all of them who ran this place for about 40 years with an iron fist. Then you had Marsha and Frank, who were like the bridges over troubled waters. And then you had people like me, you, I even throw Kevin Kelly, Angela Woodson, and others that you're talking about in that mix, that sort of middle age. And now we're the OGs in the room. We then got these young folks here, and these young folks coming with brilliant ideas. They move at a rapid pace. When we started this, we didn't even have emails. They starting this and they got Twitters. Twitter accounts. So my point is, it's a new day. I embrace it. I am not here to carry the tradition because that's not my goal, but I am going to keep people grounded in reality that we got people in this city struggling.
With new ideas you got to have new money.
That's right.
And so one of the reason why I feel hopeful for the young man in doing what he's doing now is the fact that he does have an opportunity to come in with the opera dollars and those things that are coming in forward, so that maybe some of these new ideas that you guys are talking about doing give you guys an opportunity to do it. I think this job would have been hell, if almost nearly impossible, if that wasn't on the table. I think Mayor Jackson and your finance director kept the city running on a staple and bubble gum all this time, and Randy and Mike Cox kept them damn snow machines running on glue and Gorilla Tape. And now we're at a point now where we do need money. And we do need everything else because things go full circle, and I'm glad we're at that point. So, hi, Blaine, I want to thank you, man, for coming out here to the show, man. You did an excellent job. I'm going to have you come back because there's just so much that's going on. I want to use this as a vehicle for you to be able to get information out to the community.